Hello everyone, Paul back with another video for you. Have you ever heard the saying, never meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed? Well, today I'm going to disprove that theory. I've compiled a list of 7 musicians I think you should check out, not just because they're great guitarists, but because they're also great people. So if there's one thing I think we can all agree upon, it's wonderful to discover new musicians, especially when you hear about how hardworking and honest and humble these guys are. So I'll share a couple of personal stories along the way to support that as evidence, and hopefully this will introduce you to some new players. Let's get to it. Number 1, John Petrucci. I met John about 20 years ago when he and his wife reached out to me to run his website, and from there on we ended up doing the website, the forum where a lot of guitar players hung out in the early 2000s. And then I did some merch sales for him as well. But anyhow, over the years I've gotten to know John as a player and as a friend and as a business guy, and he really is genuine. He's very humble about all the success that has come his way. And beyond all that, he is a phenomenal player. You know, when you hear about players for years and years and years, because John's been around, you know, for 30 years now as far as putting out popular albums, you sometimes forget how good these guys are. And I would highly recommend checking out any of Dream Theater's albums because they're quite diverse. He also played on the side project called Liquid Tension Experiment, and that was all instrumental. So if you really like instrumental rock, that'd be worth checking out. And he does have a solo album called Suspended Animation, another album worth checking out because it has great riffs and great melodies. John composes guitar solos really well, but he also is a riff meister and can just come up with some of the most killer riffs for the songs in Dream Theater and some of these other projects. So a great guy, really glad to know him. We stay in touch all the time, and I highly recommend you check out John Petrucci. Number 2, Ron Thal, Bumblefoot. So I actually met Ron through the John Petrucci forum. He was hanging out on there a couple of years maybe, and we started emailing, and he eventually came down to the Raleigh Music Academy and started doing workshops with us. So over the years, I've gotten to know Ron through him teaching with us, as well as I had the opportunity to play rhythm guitar for him. So we did multiple shows at the RMA. We did a show in Chattanooga, Tennessee one time, which was an awesome side trip for all of us. So Ron was a solo artist for years and eventually joined Guns N' Roses in 2006, I believe. Stayed with them about 8 years. He is what a lot of people would call an eclectic player. He does play fretless guitar, probably half the time. He has a double neck, and I think he started using that during his tenure with Guns N' Roses. But he is what I would call a musical savant, and I don't throw that term around lightly. He has perfect pitch, and it seems like he can play anything he's ever heard. That may not be the case literally, but it seems that way. I was in a music store with him one time, and there was a guy across the store playing improvisational jazz. So this was not, you know, like a standard that you would know right off the top of your head. It was just a guy messing around on guitar. And Ron played every chord regardless of the voicing, and every single note about a half second to a second behind the guy. Now Ron wasn't plugged in, so he couldn't hear him playing this, but to me it sounded like a delay. So it was pretty amazing to witness that, somebody whose ear is so perfect that they can immediately hear something and then channel it right back out his fingers. So an incredible ear player in that respect. And I will say one thing about the way Ron teaches. Every time I've seen him teach either private lessons or group lessons, he talks about hearing all the parts and trying to replicate them in a song. So not just the guitar riffs, and not just the solos, that sort of thing, but listen to the bass line, listen to the melody, the voice, listen to the keyboards, and try to replicate those in your playing. And when you hear Ron demonstrate this, it ends up sounding like he's more of a classical player because he's doing all of the parts. So it's a really good idea to develop your ear and really become more of a complete musician who can play more than just rhythm parts on the guitar. You can play a lot of melodic ideas that you may not have thought of before. So as far as Ron's music goes, he has a lot of solo material to choose from, and a lot of it was instrumental, and then he started putting more and more vocals over the years. He's a great singer, and he's currently in the rock band Sons of Apollo, so it's progressive rock if you want to check that out. Very, very cool stuff there. And he is an excellent songwriter. He knows how to write a song with a great hook, and he produces a lot of other bands. And then just as a soloist, you're not going to hear anybody else play solos like Ron does. He does a lot of two-handed tapping, but of course playing fretless at the same time, and then sometimes going up and off of the fretboard by using a thimble. He can create sounds and intervallic leaps that other players just can't replicate. So it's a really big challenge for other players to reproduce his music if they want to cover it. So definitely a fun player to check out. So make sure you look up Ron Thal. Number 3, Matias Eklund. Matias is a Swedish guitarist from the Swedish woods, as he would say. And we had him over, Ron Thal introduced me to him, so we had him over when Ron was at the RMA one time, and he did a 4-day workshop with us. People loved him. He's a hilarious person in general, but he's also a really funny teacher. Really good at teaching, though. He can break it down in very simple concepts. One of the hardest working musicians you'll ever see. He's always busy. But the other thing I would say about him is he's in a rock band called Freak Kitchen in Sweden, and he's a very, very song-oriented player. He's an amazing player. His band has done very well, and his playing is very honest, very quirky. The word has been used a lot with his playing. He does a lot of tapping, sweeping, but he is also known as King of the Harmonics. He is probably one of the best harmonic players you'll find on the planet. You'll just have to look him up and see some of the insane things he can do with it. But he's also very, very good rhythmically, extremely good. And I know he teaches some of that in some YouTube videos that are very, very inspiring. So check out Matias Eklund of Freak Kitchen. Number 4, Andy Timmons. my favorite players in the world. This guy, I also came to know about him through the Petrucci forum, and he has been to the RMA many times and is, number one, he's just the nicest guy on the planet. Anybody who's met him will say that. I mean, he is an amazing human, but the guy bleeds melody. When this guy plays a melody on the guitar, it is mind-boggling, and it definitely takes you back to somebody like Lukather or Jeff Beck. He is one of the most musical guitar players you'll ever hear, and if you want to study vibrato and bending, just watch Andy Timmons' videos and listen to his music. He is one of the masters at that, and he really helped me open up that area of my playing. And you can watch all his videos and be blown away with how good he is, but you need to see Andy Timmons live, because when you see him live, especially in a small venue, you will see the connection he has from the guitar through the amplifier to produce the guitar tones that he gets. His tone is unquestionably one of the greatest you'll ever hear, and it's just from the fingers all the way out the speakers. It is beautiful, it's warm and engaging. So if you ever get a chance to see him live, it's truly one of those religious musical experiences that is something that you definitely won't regret. Even if you weren't a fan of his music, you'll appreciate the musicality with which he puts into his shows. So definitely check out Andy Timmons. Number 5, Guthrie Govan. I met Guthrie through Ronthal, once again. Well, we stayed in touch for many years, and I eventually was able to get him to come to do a workshop at the Raleigh Music Academy for 4 days, I believe. And he was one of the greatest teachers I've ever seen. He is very, very much a philosophical player, and he will talk more about how to play music and not so much the technique of it all. Now, if you want to work on your technique, though, you definitely want to look at Guthrie's playing, because he's a chameleon. He can play just about any style, and he does it convincingly. This is not something he's faking to just kind of sort of sound like it. He is an authentic player in many styles. Probably best known for kind of his jazz rock fusion playing in his current band with the Aristocrats. He also tours as the guitar player for Hans Zimmer when that orchestra goes on tour. But Guthrie is an extremely musical player with just fire-breathing technique. He can alternate pick so cleanly, hybrid picking, finger picking, of course, but he is really an interesting player because he has such a knowledge of these other styles. He's able to blend them and bring them into a rock context or a jazz context and do it in a logical way where it doesn't seem forced. So definitely one of the greatest electric players you'll see. So I would highly recommend checking out the amazing Mr. Guthrie Govan. Number 6, Andy Wood. Now, I've known Andy for about 11 years, and I don't think he would mind me telling you how we met. when I got Guthrie booked to come do a workshop at the Raleigh Music Academy, I got a phone call, and it was Andy Wood. And he said, I will come teach anything you want me to teach as long as I can be there to learn from Guthrie. And I said, of course, yeah, come on out. So we worked that out, but that's a beautiful thing, and that shows you the humility of a player of Andy Wood's caliber. He wanted to come learn from this guy he had, seen YouTube videos of, and he just couldn't, fathom what kind of a monster player this is, and he wanted to learn more about him. And I thought that was awesome, and that's exactly what he did. He came there, and Andy Wood is a sponge. He soaks up ideas left and right. And when we had him with Tom Quayle, as a matter of fact, I remember he was inquiring of Tom about a certain way that Tom phrases through lines. And Andy immediately started learning that and putting it into his own playing. So he's always looking for new ideas to work on and implement in his own playing. So it's really fun to watch Andy do that. He can be a chameleon like Guthrie, because Andy is a country player, he's a bluegrass player, he's a rock player, he's played in metal bands, he's played as a kind of a hired gun for Scott Stapp, Rascal Flatts, Low Cash, and Sebastian Bach. I may be missing some others, but he's got a lot of experience in that regard too. So a lot of studio work, but an incredible player, a great musician to be with. I have played a lot of shows with him as his rhythm player. We opened for the Aristocrats one time, and we did a little mini tour with Freak Kitchen. A really cool player, really cool guy. Andy Wood, check him out. Number 7, Tom Quayle. One of the best jazz fusion players you're ever going to see. And as I've told many people, for me, he makes listening to jazz fun. So he's probably best known for his incredible legato technique that he employs. But I mean, he's a lot more than that. He's a very good hybrid player, very good at improvising over ridiculous changes. But maybe more than anything, he's got groove. He plays with incredible time feel. So it doesn't have to be something complex. He is just in the pocket, and his playing is beautiful. His phrasing is very interesting. And also, as far as from a teaching aspect, Tom is phenomenal. He can work with any level of player and give them something tangible to work on that's going to improve their playing. I saw him do it at our place, and you can check out his materials that he has available online. He really is one of the best teachers, and I've also mentioned too to some players that he's really one of the best demo guys for gear on the internet, because he can take something like the Axe FX and explain it in a very thorough fashion, but make it simple enough for any user to understand. So he's very good at breaking down not just concepts about gear, but certainly about guitar playing. So also just a very nice guy, very easygoing. And I should mention too, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying this, when he was there with Andy Wood, he told me, he said, Andy Wood, I'm terrified of him from a player's perspective, because Andy Wood has no fear. And what he meant is, Andy will try anything. He'll jump into any situation because he wants to learn. Even songs he doesn't know, he'll jump right in and just play them. But that tells you a lot about Tom, too, when he says, he's terrified of somebody like Andy Wood. Tom is a world-class player. And even he, looks at other players and holds them in high esteem. So that's really cool. He's very humble and a really good guy to learn from. Definitely check out Tom Quayle. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like it and it introduced you to some new players, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I want to mention 5 other players really quickly who didn't make it into this list, but they're wonderful guys and great players. Check out Martin Miller from Germany. He's doing a lot of really cool covers on YouTube right now with his studio band. Check out Chris Feener. He is an amazing player who you'll be able to find on either YouTube or Facebook. Incredible chops for days. Chris Brooks from Australia. He has a lot of teaching material available on YouTube as well as printed material on Amazon and other places where you can buy books. Really great player and teacher. Rick Graham from England. He has a lot of stuff on Instagram and YouTube that you can check out. Astonishing technique and just an amazing player. Travis Montgomery, another amazing player who's been in a number of bands, and you can find him in, I think the most recent band is Kill the Lights, and some other groups that you can probably find through his YouTube channel. Anyways, hope you enjoyed all that, and we'll see you next time.